And welcome to this buildingSMART International session from the Standards Summit in Valencia 2024. Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Proctor and I will be your moderator. Details of today's session are shown on the screen. We will be hearing from a number of speakers, including Sofie, Ivara, Nicolaissen and Øivind Rooth, about standardisation within SEN and ISO with regards to BIM and digital passports. The session is scheduled to last for 90 minutes, including time for questions at the end, and the session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to Sofie, I'd like to remind you that this is a hybrid event, and for online attendees, your microphones will remain muted for the duration of the session. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the chat box in the control panel and I will prompt you to do so. For people in the room, welcome. Please keep background noise to a minimum, and if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll use this microphone that I'm speaking into now. I'd also like to bring to your attention the fact that buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent, and that standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider, but are open, non-binding and accessible to all. Please take note of our antitrust code of conduct. Okay, with that, I'm going to pass to Sofie.
Thank you. Thank you. So, hello. My name is Sofie Nicolaissen, and I am a business manager with Standards Norway, and with me I have Øivind Rooth.
Yes, Øivind Rooth here. I'm here as the chair as SEN TC442 and ISO TC59 AC13, both the BIM committee in SEN and ISO.
Yeah. So first I would like to talk a little bit about Standards Norway, what we are. We are a Norwegian national standardization body, like UNE is. We are private, independent, and a member organization, which is non-profit. And we were established in 2003, but have roots back to 1923. So we had 100-year anniversary, last year, which was a lot of fun. We have standards in most areas, and we have been a member of SEN and ISO since 1961 with SEN and 1947 with ISO. We are approximately 70 or maybe now 80 people, and we are the owner and publisher of Norwegian Standard Protected Trademark. We have a lot of people, experts working through us in SEN and ISO. We have in ISO we have 331 committees where there are Norwegian experts, and in SEN we have 246 committees. We have the lead and secretariats with 41 ISO committees and 11 TC SC secretariats, and with the SEN we have 39 secretariats and 13 TCSCs. So we have approximately 1,150 Norwegian participants in ISO and SEN, which is quite a good number for such a small country. So I would like to talk a little bit about SEN and ISO, SEN and SENELEC, the European standardization system, and how it works. So we have the international standards, international standardization organizations, ISO, IEC, and ITU, and we have the European standardization organizations, SEN and SENELEC, and ETSI. So the European one is the EU uses SEN as a tool to implement some of its regulation. And the way it works is that when there is a European standard, all different Norwegian or other national standards has to be withdrawn if it's in the same topic and if it covers the same. So it gives an access to a market of 600 million consumers, which is a great number. SEN is a massive organization. It has 450 technical committees. It has 1,800 working groups and approximately 200,000 experts working in it. It has right now around 24,000 standards, and it covers everything in society. There's with building construction and IT and societal topics and technical standards. It's everything. So the way it works is there is a market and policy needs, and then there's a committee that works together, and it is a national delegation principle. There are experts nominated by the national standardization bodies that can vote into the committees. Then there are the European organizations that are observers that cannot vote, but they can listen and see what's going on. And you have experience with that.
Yeah, but you also can say that buildingSMART International is a liaison to 442. So buildingSMART can attend meeting and attend in the working groups and participate in the work, but they cannot vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and also experts from buildingSMART can sit in the expert groups in the national standardization organizations and vote through their...
The main the way they can work is that they contact the national standardization body and maybe have the buildingSMART view through that way.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Yeah. So, and the technical committees, they are the decision makers, but the work with making the standards is in the working groups. And the ecosystem of standards, we have a whole governance of standards, and it works. There are needs and qualifications that come in from the market, and then we do project development, and the committees produce the standards in the committees, and then we publish it, and then we distribute it, and then they use it, and then we see if there's a need to revise it.
It's a systematic review every 60 years,
Yeah.
but it can also be done more often if there is a need for it.
Yeah. So at least every 6 years, all standards are up for review, which makes it so that it's a very dynamic and need-based governance of the standards.
Yeah. And what they ask for then is there still a need for the standard? Should it stay as is? Should it be revised, or should we just delete it or take it out because it's not relevant anymore?
Yeah. So then it's... I want to talk a little bit about ISO, the International Standardization Organization. I have videos which makes the world turn around, which is a lot of fun. It takes up a lot of space. So we have the international dimension. You have SEN, as I talked about, and then you have ISO, and you have the Vienna Agreement between the two. So that they are in agreement to work together and collaborate on certain topics.
Yeah, it's regulate how we can collaborate.
Yeah. And it's the same in IEC and Senelec.
Yeah, but the experience we have quite a lot, because most of the BIM standards is both in SEN and ISO, and I can tell you that the Vienna Agreement is quite complicated. But we have got a lot of experience with it, so it works well for us.
Yeah. So ISO at a glance. There are 268 technical committees, 498 subcommittees, 2,506 working groups. It comprises of 169 national standardization bodies and last year it was 7,879 meetings, which just shows you the massive amount of work that is being done in SEN and ISO and the massive organization that it is. And there are 868 international liaison organizations, and buildingSMART International is one of them.
It's not only one of them, but it's one of the leading group because they are grouped in differently. So buildingSMART is on the highest level.
Yeah. And well, there here as well, there are over 25,000 standards that are published. And every year there are over 1,000 published new standards in ISO. So it's the same or similar, let's just call it similar regulations in Senelec and ISO IEC. In Senelec, you call it internal regulation, and in ISO, they call it directives. These are regulations for process and decision making, and this means that it's the same rules for everybody in all countries, so that I can meet a person from China and we both have the same view of how it's supposed to be done, which makes it very reliable and transparent. So there's a transparency throughout the whole process, which is very valuable, and everybody speaks the same language, which is great.
I can just say, see all this group, all these committees, it has to be heavily regulated. So there is both in the central committee or organization in SEN and in ISO, follow the meetings and see that we follow the rules.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to, there is not any possibility for shortcuts here.
Yeah.
You need to follow the rules.
Yeah. So it's the same system. So there's TCs, which are the decision bodies, and then there's working groups, which is the standards development level. And we have this same common document ecosystem, as we call it. It's ISO documents, SEN documents, and the National Standardization Organization documents. It's a documentation system. Which gives all the different committees, experts in the committees, access to their committee area where there are all the documents, so that it's a very transparent process.
And we need to upload everything. So when we have meetings also with buildingSMART, to have them understand that it has to be an official meetings because secret meetings that is not an agenda that is launched on the document system in advance. If there is not a minute, the meeting hasn't exist. Mm-hmm. And what is not popular in this system to ensure transparency and people trust each other is that everything has to be here. So meetings together that is not a document is not a popular thing. So this is what we need to do all the time.
Yeah.
To be sure that everything is documented.
Yeah, so it's the same rules. As Øivind said, the meetings has to be booked at least, I think, 4 weeks in advance, and the agenda has to be published in due time before the meeting so that everybody is prepared. And there is a set time span from when a document is published to when the decision has to be made. There are set deadlines on decisions, and the meeting minutes has to be approved and published and approved. And there is, as Øivind said, verification whether the rules have been followed or not. So there are people checking to make sure that we follow the rules.
Yeah, we have one friend there is special people follow each committee. So we have, for example, a friend in ISO Central Secretariat. She's quite strict, so we don't oppose with her.
Yeah.
Which of these arrows? This one here?
The one pointing towards me.
Okay. So then I will go down a little bit into what we do on the BIM standardization. Now you have a little bit overview of the system we all have to follow. The reason why we take this here with buildingSMART is that I think we need to repeat this so people understand what SEN and ISO actually is. And that is quite strong. But in SEN, we have the first SEN TC442 for building information modeling. We have a scope. The group was established in 2015 after a long one-year discussion if we should do this or not in Europe. And it's not covered BIM. We have a lot of discussion. What is BIM actually? And I take the short term. It's about standards, about digitalization of the construction sector, both the buildings, civil engineering, everything. So it's covered all. We use the term BIM because the politicians started to understand after about 15 years or something, discussion that what about BIM, they're starting to use the term BIM. But today we see actually that the name is a little bit hindering us a little bit, but it's not easy to change either. So 442 is more about, it's not about the model, it's not a 3D model, it's much, much more. This is the structure we have. It's growing all the time. We have a management coordination layer. We have two strategy group, horizontal, one for internal in SEN, because we make standard. We have some kind of horizontal, what they call a horizontal scope. We make standards that all the TCs has to follow to digitalize their information. For example, every construction product more or less have a standard, and many of them is so-called harmonized. That means that they are connected to the legislation in Europe. So that's a separate group working internally, and then we have working group 10, which connected to buildingSMART and all that. Use this mic inside, yeah. Okay, and then we have ISO TC 59SU13, which is the European counterpart, who have more or less the same scope. And here you see all the blue is the members, the so-called P member, that is the voting, those with voting rights in SE 13. And the yellow one is observers. So we cover most of those, a lot of the world. And the same with the SE13, we have a structure with different working group dealing with different topics. So all of this is relevant for buildingSMART of this working group, for example, here. The joint working group 12 is joint with another ISO committee. Is the one that's dealing with the IFC, for example. I have been working quite heavily this last couple of years in collaboration with buildingSMART to make this new IFC as a new updated ISO. So yeah, we have talked about the Vienna agreement, so I just skipped it here. There is a mapping. I think there should be a link, hopefully working in this. We will try to take everything. This is made from SEN. What is on the work program for SEN? That means that every one of this in the yellow here is standard that is on the work program. It's not developed everything from SEN, but in collaboration with ISO or buildingSMART, for example. The IFC is in the middle here, but there is a lot of other standards, and there is also standards, growing amount of standards outside of the work program. The work program is all the standards we have on the agenda. Is growing. So it's a challenge actually to how to inform the industry what's going on here, because it's so much going on. There is also, I think, Oscar, we maybe come into this in the next, but the EU have made a transition pathway for construction, and that is quite interesting reading. And what we say is that SEN TC442, we developed the standard supporting or enabling the implementation of this strategy. Yes, so in this, those who have the access to this, you find all the directives and the work program and the standards and so on in link on this page here. Oh, this was funny. Okay. So what about collaboration with buildingSMART? This is a quite simplified one. In the regulation, you see that we have Europe, we have 442. We are quite connected with what's happening in the EU Commission and EU, and again, other initiatives in, for example, the EU task group and so on. We collaborate closely with the ISO, then is the SE13, TC59 SE13. And we have liaison with buildingSMART. And as you see for this also, the interesting thing is that buildingSMART had what we call a liaison A with ISO. So the main collaboration route into this from buildingSMART is through ISO. We're struggling to have it in the same way with SEN for some, I think, some other reasons, I don't know. But the picture is so much more complicated. I will not go through this, but this is a simplified one where we collaborate with this formal way to collaborate with all the TCs and so on. And in this picture, buildingSMART is just one piece. So we need to, in this ecosystem, we have contact with all this organization and even much more. And that makes it actually quite complicated to make this happen. But then we have these regulations, we follow the rules, and then we see that the information is spread out. People know where to find the information and so on. If you go this one here to buildingSMART and just to specific here, just to take out buildingSMART and ISO, we see that buildingSMART between SEN and ISO, we have this Vienna agreement. As we told you, we follow that strictly how to collaborate. buildingSMART had this, what they call the liaison A. And since this was so complicated, and it was complicated for buildingSMART to understand, some years ago we made a document together with ISO SE13 and buildingSMART, where we went to the directives and tried to align the process between buildingSMART and ISO. So both buildingSMART and ISO could collaborate, follow their own rules. So we can't break the rules, but we can find which rules we can use to collaborate, do the best way. So we have used this when the last update on IFC, and I think we will revise it and see if there is something we have learned from that process. Yeah, so this is a little bit from the directives in ISO, and that just so this liaison A, what kind of rights and what does that concern? So we can find what buildingSMART should follow in here. When buildingSMART have this liaison A, that means that the A can participate in committee meeting, access document, may appoint expert to the working group, and this expert and so on. You have no voting rights, but can comment on the project as the same way as everyone else, and those comments should be handled in the same way and the same respect and all other comments. And the most important thing maybe is that buildingSMART can also propose new work, and they can be the convenership, and they can run the project in ISO if they want. Yeah, and the other thing is the interesting here that some years ago there was made a agreement between ISO Central Secretariat and buildingSMART that you can send IFC to ISO, and buildingSMART has still the copyright and owns the standards. But because the default is that if you bring something to ISO or SEN, ISO and SEN take the copyright. But there is, and actually, I think buildingSMART was one of the first organizations to make this agreement. Now it's mainstream in ISO because ISO has seen it's useful. And there is also another thing, buildingSMART is recognized as an organization that we trust so much that you can go straight to what we call DIS, or Draft International Standards, is during a fast-track procedure. That means you can, because the process is that first a committee need to deliver what they call a committee draft. It has to be out there, and then you have the Draft International Standard, and then you have the final draft standard, which out for voting. So buildingSMART can do this quite fast, and if there is no comment on the DIS, it will be published. On the IFC now, we had a lot of comment on the DIS, so we had to go to the last stage as well for the last ballot voting. So this means that the buildingSMART have a very good standing in the ISO system, and this is just a document I mentioned. So some last consideration here, maybe from my side, is that buildingSMART has an agenda to digitalize the building industry and do standardization work. There is a discussion from some saying that buildingSMART is not just a standardization organization, it have maybe a political agenda. I don't know if that's right, but someone discuss it. But as for SEN and ISO, that is pure process. We have SEN and ISO have no political agenda. We just do standardization. So that and that means that government and industry stakeholders can use SEN and ISO as a tool to implement standard for what their needs are. So that means that if the buildingSMART, for some reason, for example, find that they can use, it's possible as a liaison aid to use buildingSMART or ISO, and then SEN, of course, but the first of all ISO as more active and they actually do. So we are always in a discussion with buildingSMART here. Is it more an IFC that is good for you? But it's up to buildingSMART to decide. So is there some last famous word from you, Sofie?
No. Oh, then thank you.
Okay, then we say thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Øivind. Thank you, Sofie. We're going to bring Oscar Nieto onto the stage. And Oscar, you're going to, I'll bring your slides up.
Yes.
Welcome. Hi, we can see you. If you speak to us, Oscar, we'll just check we can still hear you.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear, and your slides are showing nicely on the screen. Do you want to go ahead?
Perfect. Yes, of course. So good morning. I'm Oscar Nieto. I'm really sorry for not being able to be with you. We have some limitations to travel. I was trying to go, but finally it was not possible. But thanks to the organizer for really allowing me to participate online. I'm working in the European Commission in unit DG Grow, unit H1, dealing with mainly with construction. And in my team, I'm one of the experts working with the construction products regulation. And I think this presentation is quite interesting because I already spoke to some buildingSMART events last year. And the discussion was what is going to happen with the construction products regulation in the coming years, considering that the European Commission adopted a proposal in 2022. And now some of you already know that we have a political agreement. There will be a new construction products regulation after the summer. And this new construction products regulation is very focused on the delivery of digital information. So what I'm going to show to you are some points or some elements that are related to the work in digitalization and how this could affect your market and hopefully benefit the work that you are doing and make sure that it works in practice. So I'm just going to the first slide. I know this slide probably you have seen before because I always present the same slide. I think the reason is because this is the main message that we have in our unit and in particular in the Commission as regards construction products. So on the contrary of SEN and ISO, we have a political agenda. Our political agenda is the single market. And in particular, DG Grow has been pushing very hard. We are now, we celebrated the 30 years anniversary of the European single market. And one of the main goals of the Commission is to ensure that the products placed on the market can really travel freely in member states, but also that the competitiveness of the industry is as high as possible and is not stopped or limited by, for example, national regulations that require abusive requirements or information that is not necessary or is misleading. So for this reason, we have already a regulation, but the new regulation will be even stronger on this point. And you have in the screen the core of the regulation. The core of the regulation is that every information delivered by the manufacturers about the construction products is not related to the requirements at national level that you have in the right. So the approach is that the requirements should be communicated to us. So you see the top of the arrow, and the Commission together within the system, together with the standardization, will deliver the assessment method, the essential characteristic, and the technical properties that will be declared by the manufacturers. So in this way, we ensure that manufacturers following European standards deliver all the information that is required. Correct. It was an automatic system. And this is the core of the system, and also which creates some difficulties, because of course we need to collect all the regulatory inputs from the market and then integrate them into standards. And in the regulation, we have quite a broad scope, but this is what I also want to show. The regulation is very open to the different topics or issues related to products that can be assessed according to the system. We call it basic requirement for construction works. We have 8, and I call your attention that we are not only dealing with structural integrity or fire safety or release of dangerous substances or the traditional characteristics of the products. We are also dealing with energy efficiency and thermal performance, and we are also dealing with environment and circularity. So the regulation is not only dealing with the traditional compressive strength of products and the typical properties. We are really having a very broad scope, and we are delivering properties in our system for all the relevant characteristics of the products. And I call your attention that during the negotiations, the environmental part was one of the most relevant points. And we have even in the regulation a list of environmental indicators that will always be included in relation to construction products. So how the system will work as regards digitalization. So you have here some small time frame that I think is very relevant. So the regulation is expected to be adopted by around the end of 2024. We'll enter into application 1 year later, and we have a specific provision to set up a digital product passport system, which will oblige all the manufacturers placing products on the market according to the new regulation to deliver this digital product passport system according to a structure and certain properties that will be defined by the Commission. Don't be afraid about interoperability about the possibility that this information will interact with other tools. The approach is that this information will be, as you see, based on open standards, machine readable, in an interoperable format, structure searchable and transferable. So the approach we are having is really creating what we, you know better than me, a data dictionary for the regulation that will ensure that in Europe, all the products placed on the market on the basis of the CPR have clear and established properties according to the regulation. We are now discussing how the system will work, and I'm not going to speak more about it because the other speakers today will explain this in detail. But I want to call your attention to something that is important, is that our structure, our system will be connected to the same centralized registry, the website, and the system adopted under the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. So those of you who may work also on digitalization of other products which are not under the CPR, for example, boilers, but also products which are outside construction, will have the same approach, the digital product passport, and will follow exactly the same rules and structure. But we have the possibility through this legal act to establish a tailor-made approach that will help us to align as much as possible to the existing BIM environment, to the existing standards, and to the system that is already in place. And something I want to insist is that this is really related to products placed on the market. So this doesn't mean that you cannot deliver your own tools for installation, for the calculation, the assessment of the installations, maintenance, operation. This is really related to the input values that you will use when you want to introduce in your other systems the information from a construction product. So the time frame I want to clarify is not fixed for the digital product passport. These are tentative dates because we are not only depending on our own resources and our own service, but also we want to make sure that our system is compatible with ESPR, and we are developing it at the same time. And for example, batteries will also integrate the digital product passport system. So this is a development that will the Commission is already starting, but may take some time, more or less. But we are expecting that it will be implemented around 2028 maximum. What is a DPP? Because we have plenty of questions. What is this? A document is a paper, is of course digital, is following this structure. And in the case of the CPR, in the regulation is already explicitly described what is a DPP. And a DPP is this a set of these documents that will be digital and machine readable. The Declaration of Performance and Conformity is what you usually call product data templates. Is the list of properties, which we call essential characteristics, information always harmonized with the test methods agreed by standard writers at European level. So SEN will deliver the methods, the classes, the thresholds, what should be declared for every product and intended use. And this in the standard will be taken by the manufacturer, and the manufacturer will deliver a declaration of performance and conformity in a digital format, including also the information about, for example, third-party validation or information related to the regulation. So this is the core document, and we are expecting that this will be also the part of the data that you will need when you will use the information from the construction products. It can contain also drawings, technical information about the structures. So in some cases, it may be quite detailed. In other cases, if it is a product which is off the shelf, you will have kind of a standardized approach. The second document is General Product Information, Instructions for Use and Safety Information. The title is a bit strange, but this is what was the result of the negotiations. And this is the information for the users, not only consumers, but also industrial users. And this document will contain a lot of information about what you should do or what you should not do as regards the products. It's also following the same approach. In other regulations, we have it. The added value is that it will not only be together with the product, you will have it digital. And if I have a problem, I can always, for example, check this data. We are being very ambitious in the regulation, and we are also introducing environmental information, such as what to do for recycling, for other properties. So that's really quite comprehensive. The third is the technical documentation. The technical documentation will not be public, but will be in the system, and this will allow to check for, in case market surveillance, or if there is an issue with the product, this technical documentation may be consulted only by authorities. So the system will establish certain controlled access to this. And I already mentioned that in the Declaration of Performance, you will have environmental essential characteristics. One of the most important is CO2 emissions from the product, but also a long list of indicators currently in environmental product declarations. But we have the possibility also to establish a labeling. And in case the product has a label, which wouldn't be a general approach, but in some cases we will do it, this label will be also in the digital product passport. The last two elements are more technical, are the unique identifiers, which will allow the traceability of the DPP to the product. These unique identifiers will be connected to the data carrier, and the data carrier will be in the product and also in the DPP, and will ensure that there will be a connection between them. So this is the structure of the system. We may have also some control system like a hash or additional elements, and there will be a system also to give access to certain levels, depending if the documents are relevant only for authorities or just for the user of the product. So you see the system is complex, but at the same time have the potential to really be the best approach to deliver information. And we are really we have we think that this data will be easily extracted through some systems that we will deliver, but also we want that APIs will be able to extract this data and transfer it to other formats or adapt it to the needs of the specific system in which we will work. And for example, one of the main goals is that for the environmental assessment of buildings will be automatized, and there will be software tools that easily will take the data from the DPP from the products, and with some additional elements from the installation and the other information will be able to calculate the environmental assessment of the buildings. This is another time frame. You see the first part is the same, but I want to highlight that one of the crucial elements of the CPR is this environmental information that will be digitalized and interoperable, but it will not only be this, it will be also compulsory. So from the entry into date of application of the new CPR, all the products placed on the market according to the new CPR will have the obligation to declare the CO2 emissions over the life cycle of the product. 4 years later, the core indicators in EPD, so a long list of indicators to be able to calculate this environmental impact of the building, and by 2031 the full list of EPD indicators. So I think this goes in line with the activities that Sanz developed in the last years. There is a lot of work on the improvement of environmental product declarations and on the digitalization of the environmental product declarations. And what we want is to take as much as we can of this work and make sure that this is integrated into the regulatory system and deliver relevant information. And I think this is a bit more technical, but the idea is that for every standard, we will have a standardization request, which is a contract of the Commission with Sanz to develop a standard, so what Øivind was explaining before. And Sanz will deliver the standard, and when we will check that the standard is correct, it will be the mandatory declaration and will contain also this product data template and the obligation to declare environmental information and other performances. And also we have in some cases the possibility to establish additional requirements, but this is an element that will only be applicable to some products and will have less impact on the digitalization. So I have this I think is the final slide, just to show you that the implementation of the new CPR won't be kind of a borderline, so there won't be a line in which the CPR is changing. What we are going to do is revise the standards one by one, so the harmonized standards under the current CPR, which are not ready for all these elements, will slowly disappear and will be replaced by the standards under the new CPR, including the environmental, the digitalization, and all the new features of the regulation. So this slide is just to give you a message that we cannot stop working, but it won't be kind of very fast. So we will work product by product and make sure that all the products around 10 years will be falling under the new system. And I think probably it's a bit difficult to explain the CPR in a short period of time, but I hope I managed to give you the most relevant points for you. Thank you.
these two tasks. And well, this is more or less how we are structured. This is not really so important. This is more important. These are the 5 options defined by the Commission then, in more than 6 months ago. And we are now analyzing and changing a little bit the drafting of these options to really check. For example, national database, it seems it will not be possible if we understand national as owned by the countries, but other options are aroused. And something that I would like to highlight is this study is not to make a decision. The decision is not to be made by us. The decision is always going to be made by the Commission because it's their system, their regulation. What they want is information to make that decision. That is their decision, not ours. And in the last version, I told you last month, we had some changes. I will just summarize some of them. They forget about database, but they talk about digital passport system. This will be required in the new regulation, and all manufacturers will have to store their data here. And this is a summary of where we are. This is a physical meeting we had in Madrid. We will have others in Norway probably after summer. And the status, the task 1 requirements is already finalized. We are working on the rest of tasks. We are having meetings, usually it's 2 weeks with the Commission. We have an advisory board with industry associations, European industrial associations, and we intend to launch an open consultation in which you all will be allowed to answer about several questions regarding costs, pros and cons of each solution. And a quick reminder about the standardization. This has been said before, but the CPR, the current CPR, is based on harmonized standards. Harmonized standards are the key for a manufacturer to fix the CE marking to sell in Europe. But it is also the language you all use when you procure a product. If you are making a building and you want certain performance, you always use the terminology contained in the standard. So it's something quite important, at least in Europe. You also see this picture before, the importance of TC 442 to develop this. I will very briefly comment about environmental information EPDs later. This is a Spanish standard that I'm very happy because it's referenced here. It's based on a European document. We will not have time to talk about it, but it was quite important, at least for us. This is something that I will also want to comment, linking with the presentation from Oscar. We will have to include all these impact categories. In addition to that, we will have to add several indicators regarding user resources and other information. So just 20 indicators, let's say, a little bit more, but it's not important. But each of that indicators will have to be declared for each information module of the life cycle. So we are talking about hundreds of data for each scenario. One scenario might be the product on the roof, or there might be the product here, the product in. So we are talking about hundreds and hundreds of data for each product. And a product is just a small part in a building. So this is something that you can clearly not solve without digitalization. This is why it is very important to include environmental information here. And for that, we have an ISO standard that was published 2 years ago. We are also looking into this standard. We are even trying to check about some improvement that can be made. And we will talk with the convener, which is also from Norway, and try to make a revision to use this standard for EPD information. And another important, or I think important thing to say is that the ESPR, which is the Eco Design Regulation, is really linked with this regulation. It affects boilers and other products and batteries now. There's a regulation for that. So we receive, as standardization bodies, we receive a mandate from the Commission to develop standards for digital product passport, horizontal standards, not really for construction, for everything, in several topics. We had a meeting in December. The next meeting will be next week. And we have a mandate. Mandate means that the Commission tells us that we have to publish certain standards and in certain time. In principle, it should be, all the standards has to be published already before the end of next year, which is very complicated, but we will see what happens. And before Lars take the floor and explain a little bit more about the project, I would like to highlight just 3 things. That the CPR includes a digital product passport system that will be mandatory for all manufacturers in Europe, but also for anyone trying to sell here in Europe if you are producing abroad. And that we don't know yet 100% how it will be implemented. The Commission will decide that via delegated act next year or when they see fit, when they want. We are developing a study with CoBuilder and Tecnalia that will provide information so they can make a decision. We will talk about costs, pros and cons of each option, but the decision is always to be made by the regulator. And the third thing is that the connection with BIM is very important. This is what links us today here. It is explicitly mentioned in the regulation. They explicitly say that interconnection with BIM is a requirement. So, well, I think this is probably the place so we can talk about that. And this interconnection can be based on standards, as Sofie and Øivind explained. There are several standards that are developed together with buildingSMART, ISO and SEN, and keep working together will probably help us, well, achieving a better result. And I think that's all, yes. And now, Lars.
Hi, my name is Lars Fredenlund. I'm CEO of CoBuilder. Have been working in buildingSMART on data dictionaries for I don't know how many years with Fredrik Kahn down there in the beginning and Espen. Can you put your hands up from CoBuilder? And Enzo, are you here? Enzo there. So Enzo, he's also working for CoBuilder. He's previously working for GS1, which is very important when we talk about digital product passport, because you saw that there is something with identification, and that is GS1. And GS1 and buildingSMART, they have an agreement together to work together. And this is a really important connection to understand this connection. So in buildingSMART, before I present, I have been trying to chase the concept of data dictionaries and how we model properties, data sets, objects, templates for many, many years. And CoBuilder, we have been very active on developing standards. So in SEN 442, with Øivind, Espen and Fredrik has been very active, spending a lot of time traveling, meeting, working for the benefit of all, which is important for everyone. So that was CoBuilder, and yeah, I'll start now on the study. So you can go to the next one. So I'm just going to have a high-level talk here. Where does this fit with the BIM? So BIM, in this case, buildingSMART. I'll try to explain it practically. But first, we have to go to a higher level. This was developed by, this is built on a framework that was developed by the Manufacturing Association for, so the Association for Manufacturers in Europe, called CPR, which is one of our partners in the project, together with the contractors, FIEC, and other European associations. The driver here, as I see it, you see it on the right-hand side. This is a 2030, 55% reduction of carbon, and there's a time limit. So the push is on the green side. So that means not only construction, but other areas like clothing, tires for cars, all these things all these regulations are being revised. So you have to go in and revise all of this, and you have to do that quite fast. And this is also a topic for this change. So this thing with digitalization now is coming fast because of the green shift. So in green public procurement under the ESPR, you can select one property called carbon footprint and one more. And you can, as a public actor, you can then weight your procurement from 15 to 30% based on those two properties. That is important to understand that this is connected to the digital product passport. And how does this again relate to buildingSMART? Then we have national building, let's say I would like to comment maybe on the building codes, which was shown on the slide from Oscar Nieto for civil engineers, so rail, road, and building. When we have in Europe an open market, you can either from outside of Europe or in Europe, you can sell your products under a CE mark. That CE mark is referring to a standard, a product standard. And the work that Espen has been leading is to develop data template standard that's called ISO 23387. No, 23387, yeah. That's data template for construction objects. That's a standard. And when we have data templates for, let's say, a window, all of the characteristics for the window is properties in the template, in a dictionary. So here we come with dictionaries. So, and do we use those properties in buildingSMART today? Yes or no? The answer is no. And that's our journey to select from a dictionary the data set coming from the regulation. Not something we invent, because Revit and ArchiCAD should talk to each other. So that's a change, okay? So regulatory, it's important to understand that the window, fire, sound is test methods, tested in laboratories. And this is a global thing. It's not European, it's a global thing. So again, on the building level, when we get the window, does it meet my requirements? I am a client, I set the U value to this, fire to that, sound to this, and solar reflection to that. So then, by having one common data set in early design, on the construction site, I want this window, you get the price, it's delivered. And this is a part of the DPP. So the framework of DPP, it's very important to understand that this connection is there digitally, it's one-to-one. It's a, people use different words here, golden thread, I don't know, common language, many things. But the core here is the EU regulation, it's not IFC. It's a regulation, okay? Different way of thinking. DPP is then a part of a building logbook. So when you get your product delivered to site, Digital Product Passport will provide you with information relevant for the product, as Oscar described, which means that you don't have to look elsewhere for information. This is the information you get. And all the Lego bricks you get, you can store it in the database. And then you can make relations, of course. The new thing is that it didn't used to be environmental information. And I'm a little bit shocked when I see that in other rooms, they're talking about LCA indicators and what to do and so. They should read construction product regulation. And they should understand the data will be in the DPP. It doesn't come from, so where does it come from in Europe? Via the DPP, period. And that's where you should get the data, and that is the manufacturers that has to provide. And also we could link to other things like waste codes. So again, data templates, can I enhance this with another property called waste code? Of course, but that's not in the legal framework. But I'm just saying technology-wise, you can add on whatever you do using a dictionary. The data modeling is much more easy. So maybe that's to the next one then. So that was high level, guys. So this is the study. So our scope is on on this picture, it's on this side. So it's a question mark. This is not decided. It's the delegated act, and the Commission can decide if they want to implement it and when they want to implement it. Our study is just to provide knowledge from our side, working on this topic for many, many years, on how it could be built. And this is, of course, it is not that complex, but it is complex. It is not that complex. So the different alternatives, I'll come back to that. But what is very important is that we believe it's very important with an API, so that when you are a CAD software, if you're SAP, like a ERP software, if you're a PIM, product information management system, if you're a merchant, I sell products, all of this is connected to the regulation that you have a common data sets for the window, for the plasterboard, for all the building components, common data sets. You ask the API and you get it back. So this is how we envision that this should be delivered as a dictionary first, to build a database without, depending on what kind of system you have, but you need a common data set with versioning and a lot of things there. And also maybe, not also maybe, but in the dictionary to provide machine readability. That's a very important part. So going from English to machine language, or French to machine language. It's the same concept, same thing. Next one. So this is much of the same as Oscar showed, but I just want everyone to understand here that, and I'm talking to Dan and Aidan on this, I think in 1 year in Europe, we're getting quite close. And for manufacturers in 1 year, they almost don't have time. Because if you go to a manufacturing company to say, you need to provide digital product passports, and now, let's say, or if you're selling to Europe, you don't have a market, depending on the product category where you are in line. So this is for people that are selling to Europe, or people manufacturing in Europe, or if I'm a merchant that I rebrand, you're automatically a manufacturer. So all of this is important to understand, that now we're going towards, so the recommendation of this database is that there is established data sets, not PDF files. That's a huge difference. So I can search, like hotels.com, what is the best plasterboard for me here, search, find, and compare. This transparency is something that the manufacturing companies do not like, but this is why we have Standards Norway and UNE to provide harmonized standards to say this is a product and its characteristics, common technical language it's called in the regulation. So that means in reality that you have a standardization of data sets for the product or system level. So there's the test method, let's say also for walls. It's provided by Sanz. It's not provided by buildingSMART. So on these identifiers, I just would like to comment one. This is an identification of where is this product manufactured, which changes a little bit. So if I buy a product and the products are looking to me exactly the same, if they are manufactured in different manufacturing sites, the two different products might have the same technical characteristics, but they will never have the same environmental footprint because of the transportation from where it's manufactured to where I buy it. So that means something for you when you want to take a choice. So I can then take an educated choice to say I would like to buy from this facility, from this production site, because it has a lower carbon footprint, because I don't have to drive that product so far. And that depends on where you are. That's called A4 in an EPD. Also, this technology, it's kind of cool, and that's GS1. I'm attending GS1 summits. There are more people there than here, and they're geeks on products, on identification for locations, on transactions, I mean, on the logistics side. GS1 has a barcode which is more used than Google every day. So you know it. Beep. That's the standard. This is now being implemented. This is the unique identification. This is the company who brought it on the market. And this is where is it manufactured. This will change a lot of things. And I'm quite sure when you get APIs and things, and when people start to understand what this really means for the industry, you will see that I can make one data set to procure windows from here into the future. And you can say, I will order, I don't know, but AI tells me these many windows. And we will change the way that we work, and it's a lot of things. But that's on standardization, and standardization is fantastic because we agree that's a standard. And then we can actually buy A4 paper and use it. Next one. One thing here on this slide is restricted data. It was mentioned, like if there's something called market surveillance in Europe for everything we have. So market surveillance is where Øivind works. There are market surveillance for Norway for construction products. So they go and expect, is this product tested, concrete? Do they have a test regime required under the regulation? And these guys are running around to check and inspect if this is reality. Now, much more of this can be done digitally. So now, if I scan a QR code, I can check that the test certificates or whatever information required is there. And that is only available by you by a specific application where you can program one app where the technology allows you to access different data than a user just using a camera that gets the DPP. So this is and it's linked data with several, you can link data between this data carrier and many data sources. Really cool, important stuff. Next one. Now, here we have the standards that we are looking at in the study. Do you see IFC? It's not there. So I'm kind of trying always to say, okay, what about this gap we have in the industry between design and manufacturing? Why are not manufacturers here? Should we just continue? Or should we look at actually the EU regulation and start using that as a common data set for my window? And then I can say I'm still an IFC window, but I use a different data set. But I'm still an IFC window or on a Revit window. This is dictionaries, guys. So you can model in any way you want. And you could say it's omniclass, uniclass, co-class, whatever. I'm still a window, but I have a data set which is managed. And in the CPR, you will see that it's written European Data Dictionary holding information from the standards. So it comes from SEN and the national standardization bodies. That is the way where you will get your properties, your information. It's going to be on this, it's going to be on EN level, not national level, Europe EN level. So this is dictionary, or I want to put an S behind because this framework is all about interconnected data dictionaries. So it's not only BSD, there's interconnected dictionaries. So the Commission will have a dictionary and it will automatically connect to any other dictionary following the standards. So it can be used. And you can build upon it. You can stretch and move and remove and add whatever in your dictionary. But the interconnected dictionary is key. This is a process standard described with all the attributes you need to describe properties coming from a test method, essential characteristics on a product level. Process standard comes from France. So it's AFNOR that were leading this in CEN 442. This was led by co-builder Espen Schulze, sitting back there. He is now working on the revision of that. So we're using data templates to structure the essential characteristics, which is properties in our world, to deliver that with versioning. So you can version a template, a property, whatever, in a dictionary. This is a connection to BIM. So this is a standard where you add on milestones. So at this stage, for my object window, I want this information from the actor architect. So then you standardize that, you build the requirements, and then you can say, okay, but I still want to use IFC. Fine. Because it's an IFC window. But I use the properties from the standard. And outside of my database, I can talk to any merchants, actors, whoever on the property side to say this is a product or whatever. You can search any of that, whatever. So the dictionary part here again is important, but this is a way of modeling. So this is a standard called level of information need. Again, CEN 442, not buildingSMART, CEN 442, working on a standard on how to structure the building process. So that is a standard over level of information need called ISO 19650. So this is asset information requirements. The asset is my window. The requirements is at this stage for this actor. I want energy calculation data, so a set of data for my purpose. So again, the digital product passport is in the very center here, because this is, if this is launched by the Commission, there will be data set given under law, digitally available. And I think it's going to be a game changer. That's how I see it. This one, Espen, he again had to educate people to say, let's create a data template using a dictionary to describe concepts for EPD data. In other rooms today, people are talking about the same thing without talking about dictionaries. So there's a huge gap inside buildingSMART on the education side to understand that this is a part of a regulation and digital product passports and what we're talking about here. And this work here is on getting all the technical committees together and start working with the standardization coming from CEN 442. Next one. So, the options you saw, Aitor showed options, and we're trying practically to see what options is there. So the concept is that I am a manufacturer. I manufacture products in Brazil, in Canada, or in Europe, and I want to sell into the European market. So the practical thing here is that to get a CE mark, you have to deliver a digital product passport. So practically, what do I do? So then you have to fill in information in the DPP to provide the required information in the DPP. And the alternative is one centralized database. So that's how we see it. The Commission builds one database. That's it. And you go in that database and you register information. I'll just take questions later on at the end. So, number two is more, are people familiar with EDI or the files, EDI? PEPL network. Yeah. So that's how we send invoices. How come that we can send invoices electronically and you send it in and boom, it goes in the right way? That is set up by by service providers. So you can go to any service provider, say I'm selecting you, and you send to that service provider your EDI or file, and via the network, it's distributed. So this is more like, let's pick a number, 10, I don't know. But there are specific service providers that are operators that you can go to. So typically this is not then the commission, but it's anyone that wants to be a service provider. This is linked to the DPP registry, which is also important. That's an ESPR thing, but the DPP registry is there, and you need to have the data carrier with you on your product. And the last one is more, can this be held with the manufacturing companies? So here we go with big manufacturers. Yes, maybe they can develop their own platform system, but what about the small ones? So our work is to look at the pros and cons and all the alternatives, talking to the industry on technical stuff. So we are advising how it could be built, and the industry is coming back with the information on pros and cons of the different alternatives. Was this clear? 3 alternatives? Yeah. Okay, next one. I think that's the last one. So any questions? 2 minutes. Question.
2 minutes for questions, I think.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation about the digital product passport. The question is, it is mandatory, so you have to deliver a digital product passport and you have to fill in data. Who is checking the quality of the data? Or can I just say X, Y, Z for certain data fields?
It doesn't change from where we are today, so it's the same regime. So we have something called notified bodies, so non-do database. So there is like certification, I don't know the word, but maybe you can explain.
I worked in a notified body before. In Europe, there are several systems, and in some of them you have to go to a special test laboratory or to a certifying body. In many systems, for example, for bricks, they visit you once a year at least. They visit your factory and they check your data in paper today. In the future, they should be a check that the data is the same. But I would like to highlight something. There we don't have time to talk about it, but why I think it's important to utilize CE marking and why it's important how it is presented. If I receive an IFC file or any digital file and the file is not correct, who is responsible? Because many times the manufacturer will hire someone to store data. Who is responsible? Well, it's complicated and you need a judge. But here it's not complicated because the regulation in Europe, in all Europe, says the manufacturer is the one and only responsible, no other responsible. So they will check that the data are correct because they cannot escape that responsibility. So I'm not sure if I reply, but it will be us today.
Since Lars was working with those who check this in Norway, I can tell you that I'm not doing it, but I have colleagues and they go deeply in, and every year they have to withdraw or they have to check the data. So, and this is happening all over Europe. So if you put something wrong on the market, you will have problems sooner or later, big problems that cost some of the companies going down on this. So yeah. I think most of those who put the information on the European market knows about this and try to do the right thing, as far as I know.
Okay, thank you. We're pretty much at time, but we have time for maybe one final question, if there's any other question in the room. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. Just what is the buildingSMART position about this issue? The question is, of course, the DDP, well, I will say, what I'm going to say is not true, but the DDP, I think it's more than for the customer, the final client, than the design, construction, and, well, it's not true, but I can see it this way. So buildingSMART, it could be a strategy for buildingSMART to work this DDP in the design phase, the construction. You understand what I mean? I'm not sure. Sorry about my English, but so the strategy. What should be the strategy of buildingSMART to get along with this issue?
Everyone here in the room have heard about BSDD because it is a dictionary. So that means that when you're in early design, you can use the dictionary to see what are the properties I need for the window. It's not a window. It's just the properties under the product standards in Europe. So that's localized. We have in IFC, we have global properties like for all around the world. So this is where you localize your dictionary. So either you do it on European level, national level, or company level, whatever. But you should use, and this is kind of the knowledge that you should use the dictionary that you want to use. So if there's a legal required dictionary, that's connection for buildingSMART is to understand it will come via dictionaries to buildingSMART. And then you shouldn't be fighting, I want to use my property or Excel property or Revit property. Don't do that. So that's kind of that will bring transparency. And I think that is the connection to buildingSMART, to be honest.
And if I may add, I was checking the other day, I don't really know about IFC, to be honest, but I was checking the content the other day regarding environment, which is also my topic. And for example, the impact categories, they refer to a standard that was superseded 4 or 5 years ago. When this is implemented, a manufacturer in Europe will not be able, even if he wants to deliver that information, because he's obliged to deliver it according to the harmonized standard set by the Commission. They cannot provide the same info with a different test, because that would be confusing for the market. So they are not even allowed to give you the data that you have stored in IFC. So what I would do, because I think it's also time saving, is to directly accept where it comes. Okay, if thermal performance, you can have a element thermal performance in Europe and it's tested this way. You just take it, because manufacturers in Europe will only provide you that data, and you can have other data in Europe. What we did in a Smart City, which we do not have time, but we had an element specific which specifies the standard you use, and then you can use the standard used in US, Argentina, China, wherever. But some changes will probably have to be made.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring this session to an end. I'd like to thank our speakers today, Sofie, Øivind, Aitor, Lars and Oscar, for the excellent presentations that they provided and their insight into digital product passports and the relevant standards. Refreshments are available downstairs. There'll be another session in this room starting at 11 a.m. See you then. Thank you.